So I welcome you all to this session on the nonlinear static pushover analysis procedures. I will start with the basic introduction of what pushover analysis procedures are, and then how you can make the pushover analysis load case, and I will have an ETABS demonstration for that. Then we will be studying or covering few methods to determine the seismic demands of buildings using pushover analysis. Because the complete pushover analysis is when you use it for the seismic performance assessment uh, of real buildings. Uh, Sometimes the word pushover analysis is also referred to only plotting the pushover curve, but the complete method will be actually determining the seismic demands or building performance against a given seismic hazard level. So in this regard, we will be studying the capacity spectrum method as prescribed in ATC 40. ATC 40 is an important document in the performance-based seismic design. Actually, it belongs to the first generation of performance-based design documents and guidelines. Then the displacement coefficient method. Using pushover analysis, these two methods actually help us in determining the seismic demands of building structures. Then in 2005, FEMA 440 have actually improved both of these methods and proposed the improved capacity spectrum method and an improved displacement coefficient method. So we will be just going through the improved versions of both of these methods. And then finally, another method which I can identify from literature which can be used to determine seismic demands using pushover analysis is the nonlinear time history analysis of an equivalent single degree of freedom system. That using pushover curve and pushover analysis, you can approximately convert your multiple degree of freedom system into an equivalent single degree of freedom system, and then you perform its time history analysis, and the results can again be converted to the responses of multiple degree of freedom system. So this option D can also serve as one method to determine seismic demands using pushover analysis. Then the improved displacement coefficient method and improved capacity spectrum method. We will have an ETABS demonstration for both of these methods. And then finally, we will have an overview of modal pushover analysis. A pushover analysis which considers more than one mode shape patterns, and it may be applicable to buildings which have more contribution from second and third mode also. So the topic 3 will be primarily based on the conventional first mode shape pushover methods, but the topic 5 will be actually the multi-mode pushover analysis. The conventional first mode based pushover methods, they are only good for low rise buildings because they only consider first mode shape. But there are several multi-mode pushover methods which consider more than one vibration modes in the response, and they can be used for high-rise buildings which have contributions from higher modes as well. So my plan includes to start with an introduction of what pushover method is, and then we will cover two conventional first mode based pushover methods, and then at the end we will be extending that to multi-mode pushover analysis called modal pushover analysis. So that modal pushover analysis is applicable to high-rise buildings, and in fact it is not one method, there are several modal pushover analysis, several types of similar methods, they all are applicable to high-rise buildings. But one thing I will explain that already in the slides also, that uh, Currently, the status of pushover analysis is that they can be used as an alternate method for performance assessment in cases where you may not apply the nonlinear time history analysis. The first generation of performance-based design procedures, they were based on pushover analysis in early 2000s and up till 2000, maybe 10. But after that, when the nonlinear time history analysis overtake this whole PBD paradigm, now the nonlinear time history analysis is the primary procedure which can be used for performance assessment, and meanwhile you can use the pushover methods as an alternate method. So yes, you are right that all of them are not applicable to high-rise buildings, but multi-mode methods can be applied. There is a specific modal pushover analysis procedure for unsymmetrical buildings also. So the difference is in how you actually apply loading. The push load pattern is different for unsymmetrical building and different for symmetrical building. So the idea is applicable to both regular and irregular buildings, but the pushover pattern will be different for both cases. So there is a modal pushover analysis version for unsymmetrical buildings also. But generally, in this session, I'll be only able to cover the basic idea and how you can implement it in ETABS. So I'll have a small demonstration also for one model where you can make the pushover load case and then see results actually for both single mode based conventional pushover methods and multi-mode also. So let's start with the basic introduction of what pushover analysis procedure is or what nonlinear static analysis procedure is. So let's start with the big picture first. This slide I always show to explain the overall uh, overview of all the seismic analysis procedure. This is what we have already on the menu actually. That if we idealize the structural model as linear and as non-linear on this horizontal scale, and on vertical scale if we idealize the seismic loading as static and dynamic, on this space which we get where the model is linear, non-linear, and where the loading is static and dynamic, on this horizontal space we can map almost all existing seismic analysis procedures. For example, when we apply the equivalent lateral force procedure, the most conventional method used for the seismic design of buildings, it will be lying somewhere in the linear static range, where the computer model which we are using is linear, which means it has the constant stiffness, all the parameters, material properties, cross-sectional properties which contribute to the stiffness matrix of your structure, they all are constant. So ELF procedure is actually applied on a linear computer model, and the seismic loading is idealized as static. While the response spectrum analysis procedure, I write it somewhere between linear static and linear dynamic, because although practically the method itself is considering the seismic forces as static, but those static forces are calculated based on the mode shapes and time periods, which means that some dynamics is also involved in that. So it may be declared somewhere in between linear static and linear dynamic. Then we have rigorous linear dynamic procedures, modal response history analysis, and then the response history analysis using direct integration method. Both of option 3 and 4 are time history analysis, but their analysis procedures, their calculation methods are different. The third method is actually using the modal analysis results, modal results, which means mode shapes, time periods, and all other modal results, and it is using those to determine the forced vibration response of multiple degree of freedom systems. While the option 4 is method 4 is using the direct integration scheme. So 3 and 4 both are the rigorous dynamic analysis procedures. Then in the nonlinear domain, first we have nonlinear static procedures in this space, which is method 5, that your computer model is nonlinear, but your seismic loading is idealized as static loading. This is where the pushover analysis method lies. So this option 5 is actually our topic for today. This pushover analysis, as I have said earlier also, that it was once considered the default option, default nonlinear analysis option for performance assessment of building structures. So the first generation of performance-based design were based on this pushover analysis methods. But later we know already that the rigorous dynamic analysis procedures, they are more common nowadays. So this 6 and 7, they are the rigorous dynamic, nonlinear dynamic procedures where the computer model is nonlinear and at the same time you apply the seismic loading as dynamic. So in this domain also we have two methods. One is the FNA method, fast nonlinear analysis, and the second is the time history analysis using the direct integration scheme. Actually, all of those procedures are available in CSI products, including ETABS and SAP. So, but today in this session, we will be focusing on this 5. So this was important to first highlight that where we actually lying in the overall scheme of seismic analysis procedures. So our topic for today will be this method number 5, and as you can see here that this is not one method actually, it is a family of many methods and they all have different variations based on different assumptions. So we will be covering some common methods in this family of pushover analysis procedures. So the key idea is that you will be using a nonlinear computer model which will be sophisticated enough to capture all important aspects of nonlinearity, both material nonlinearity and geometric nonlinearity. But the loading, the seismic loading, will be idealized or assumed as static. So this is one piece of approximation which you will be having in all of these methods. So by having a static loading as a representative of future seismic loading, this means that the inertial effects and the damping effects will not be accounted in this pushover analysis method. All those dynamic effects, this method will not be able to capture. So this will be the inherent limitation of these methods. So the very first thing which we should discuss is that in the presence of the detailed rigorous nonlinear dynamic analysis, the nonlinear response history analysis or the nonlinear time history analysis, why we should still need these approximate seismic analysis procedures. First of all, pushover analysis is recommended for all those cases where you may not warrant the detailed non-linear time history analysis. So the first reason can be the computational resources and effort. Second can be the skill level, that time history analysis require a far more expertise and skill compared to the nonlinear static procedure or pushover analysis procedure. And third reason can be understanding, that there are several pieces of understanding and insight which you can get from simplified methods and which you may not get from more sophisticated and accurate methods like time history method. For example, the modal pushover analysis procedure, where you push each mode of building separately using a separate analysis, It will provide you a decomposition of dynamic response or seismic response also. So it will give you an information about which mode is participating the most in the final dynamic response. This information you may not get from time history analysis. Time history analysis will directly give you the combined response from all vibration modes. Actually, it doesn't use the concept of vibration mode if you go for the direct integration analysis scheme. So it will give you a more accurate result, but at the same time it will not provide an information that what factors are contributing towards that final number. So simplified analysis procedures, although they may not be that accurate, but they still give you some insight into the dynamic response of the building, and that information can be used to tune the final design. So this is some positive from the simplified analysis procedure, which may not be replaced even with fast numerical solvers and more efficient software. So in this slide, I highlight some of the reasons which make the nonlinear response history analysis a more difficult task in some cases, and in those cases which you may go for the multi-mode pushover analysis procedure if the building is taller than maybe 10-story, and if it is less than 10-story, maybe you can go for the conventional first mode based pushover analysis method. So if you want to perform the nonlinear time history analysis, you have to first select the ground motions. That process of selecting ground motions itself require a great deal of expertise. You have to have an information about the seismicity of your site in order to select the compatible representative ground motions representative of future ground shaking at your site. Then the nonlinear time history analysis is computationally demanding. You have to have the ground motion analysis for at least 2 horizontal components. Then you have to repeat it for several ground motions, not one. The recent performance-based design guidelines recommend 11 ground motions for one building's performance-based design. So you have to do it for 11 ground motions. Then the structural model should be sophisticated enough to capture all dynamic effects, because it is a dynamic analysis, time history analysis. So all of these complexities are involved in the nonlinear time history analysis. And this may not be warranted for each project for an ordinary design office. And sometimes we are more interested in quick results compared to the accuracy. So therefore, in all of these cases, these approximate methods are still an attractive option, and they can be used as an alternate to the detailed time history analysis. So with this preamble that we still have solid reasons to understand and use these approximate methods, let's start with what these nonlinear static procedures or pushover analysis procedures are. The very first component of all of those NSPs or pushover methods is the determination of pushover curve. This is the common point up till which all the pushover methods agree, and after that how to use that pushover curve, you have several methods. So this slide shows the basic idea, or the you can say the first part of pushover method, which is common in all methods. So as I said earlier, that this method was once recommended for the PBD in the first generation guidelines. Nowadays it can be regarded as an alternate method in cases where you may not be able to perform detailed nonlinear time history analysis. Now the basic idea is that you have a nonlinear multiple degree of freedom system, a detailed computer model which can capture all aspects of nonlinearity. So it have all the material nonlinearity as well as geometric nonlinearity. Now it is subjected to a ground shaking in any of its x or y direction. Now we can approximately or you can say represent this scenario or approximate this whole scenario as the same nonlinear computer model which is subjected to a lateral load pattern, a set of forces, one at each story, and those forces are increasing their magnitude monotonically while maintaining their pattern or shape of that loading. So we approximate the real ground shaking scenario by this case that we have the same computer model, but now the loading is applied instead of ground shaking, and that loading had a certain pattern. I will discuss that there are several patterns which can be used for this purpose, but that pattern will remain constant, but the amplitude of those forces, one at each story, the amplitude of all those story forces will increase monotonically. So a factor will be applied step by step, starting from a very low value up to a very high value, and those forces will be applied in step by step manner, and at each analysis step you record, or you monitor the displacement of a particular node which is called control node. Generally it is assumed at the roof level. So the roof displacement is represented here as xr, and F1 to Fn are the n story forces which are constituting that pushover pattern. So the analysis engine actually start this pattern from a very low value and apply the increments monotonically increasing pattern, and at a certain level the building start behaving inelastically, because first few increments the building will behave elastically, but then when the elements started yielding and cracking and all nonlinear effects start coming in, the overall behavior of the building goes into nonlinear range. So at the end of this practice, you plot this curve which is called pushover curve, which is a curve between base shear and the displacement of control node. Now base shear is actually the sum of all those forces which are applied as a pattern for pushing the building in horizontal direction. So the sum of F1 up to Fn will be Vb by equilibrium, and when we plot Vb versus roof displacement or control node displacement, this will be like the overall force deformation curve for your whole structure. So this curve point by point will be plotted. Whenever you apply an increment to your load pattern, you get a new Vb and a new XR. So point by point, each point on this curve is actually representing one static analysis procedure. But since your computer model is nonlinear and it allows for cracking and yielding and all nonlinear phenomena, therefore this curve will not remain linear forever. This curve will deviate from straight path, and as more elements keep on yielding, it will more and more deviate and become soft, and finally it reach to the peak capacity, beyond which your building will not be able to develop more base shear, and it will go to the ultimate failure, or it will just go down. This curve is actually the force deformation behavior of your whole structure. This curve is the force deformation behavior of a spring which is representing your whole structure. So if your whole structure was just one spring, this is the behavior of that spring. Sometimes I call it as an X-ray of your whole structure, because this curve alone can give you a lot of useful information about the structural behavior itself. For example, what will be the ultimate base shear which your structure is able to develop. So whenever there is a seismic loading which is more than this Vb, you are sure already that your structure is not going to sustain that loading. What is the yield point of your building? what is the yield roof displacement. So all that information, if there is any inherent weakness in your structure, that will be visible here in that pushover curve. For example, if the curve is going suddenly down, which means that it is having a brittle failure. For example, if there is a sudden jump in pushover curve, for example, if there is a sudden horizontal displacement like this, which means that some critical element failed at this particular analysis step, and that may cause a maybe progressive collapse or sudden failure or local failure. If there is any inherent weakness in your structure, that will be visible in this curve. So that's why I sometimes call it as an X-ray of your structure. Any major disease will be visible here in this curve. So apart from seismic demands, even alone this curve is a very useful tool to visualize the behavior of your building. It is giving you the performance of the building at different roof drift levels or roof displacement levels. So you can directly tell that if the future earthquake is giving me this much roof displacement at here, which means that I will be already going down and my structure will already be collapsing at that certain roof displacement level. So this curve itself can be, you know, giving you a lot of information about the seismic behavior. But for determining seismic demands, alone this curve is not enough, because we don't know that how much roof displacement your future earthquake is going to produce. Unless we know that roof displacement, we cannot simply calculate seismic demands from this curve, because this curve is giving you the complete kind of life cycle of your structure. It is giving you the behavior of your structure from zero loading up till maybe the complete collapse, because you can push it up till the displacement you want. When you make the load case for pushover analysis, you yourself give the limiting value or target value of this XR. So the program actually keep on pushing the building up to that displacement. So it plots that curve up till that point. So you yourself can plot it up to the last point or ultimate point maybe. So the point of seismic demands will come in when you actually know which roof displacement is going to produce in future earthquake. Until you know that number, you cannot use this curve alone to determine seismic demands, although it itself is giving the complete picture of your building. So let's set the control node as the roof node, as I have done here, and denote the peak inelastic roof displacement occurred during the ground motion as XR inelastic. Let's say that this XR inelastic is the inelastic displacement which is produced under the future ground shaking. So which means that when we push the building up to this XR inelastic, which means that when our control node displacement is equal to XR inelastic, at that pushover step, all the forces and displacement demands of the structure are the peak seismic demands or approximate demands produced by that ground shaking. So this is the key idea in all the pushover analysis procedures, that in the pushover curve, if we can get this number, what is the peak roof displacement or peak displacement of the control node, which is expected during the future ground shaking, we can push the building up to that point only, or we can extract the results at that point only, and those results will be actually the seismic demands. They will represent the seismic demands expected during the future shaking. So this is the overall idea, that structural demands at this particular point will be called the seismic demands if we can get this number, if we know that this is the displacement, roof displacement produced by future ground shaking. So up till this point, all the pushover methods are same. But from now onwards, the question is that how we can estimate this XR inelastic or the roof displacement caused by the future ground shaking, how we can get it in advance so that we can push our building up to that point at least and extract all the shear forces, bending moments, displacement, rotations and everything. So how to determine this XR inelastic? This is the main question. And from here onwards, we have different methods to determine this XR inelastic. So when you perform this pushover analysis and construct this pushover curve, at each increment, the software actually makes a database of all the seismic responses. So once you run this analysis and construct this full curve, you can go back to any of the pushover step, any of the point on this curve and extract the complete set of responses. All the shear forces, bending moments, displacement, rotation, local and global responses all will be available for each point on this pushover curve. So if you plot that curve by having 50 steps, it is like software have actually performed 50 times the static analysis, nonlinear static analysis, and all sets of results for all those 50 cases is stored already in the software database. So after the analysis, after plotting this curve, you can apply any method to determine this inelastic roof displacement. And once you get this number, come back to the pushover case results again and go to that particular pushover step which corresponds to your number, your inelastic roof displacement, and extract all the set of results at that particular pushover step. Those results actually correspond to your seismic demands because those are at a particular displacement which is expected in your future ground shaking. So although they will be approximate because they are not the results produced by the real ground shaking, they are the results produced by a horizontal load pattern and displace the structure up to that level which is expected at your ground shaking level. So they are approximate seismic demands, and whatever is the difference between those demands and the actual nonlinear time history analysis demands, that difference will be attributed to the limitation of this method because this method is static in nature. It doesn't account for all the dynamic amplification effects and all other inertial and damping effects. So the key question from now onwards is that we can plot this pushover curve up to whatever level we want, but how to get this peak inelastic displacement expected at our ground shaking level. If we get this number, then we can come back to pushover curve and extract all the responses at that particular pushover step. So there are several methods which give us an approximate method to estimate this XR inelastic, and we will discuss those methods in detail and then I'll show you in ETABS also. But first let us discuss about how we can make the pushover load case, how we can actually get the pushover curve in ETABS, and then later those methods to estimate the roof displacement, inelastic roof displacement, and then get the seismic demands. Before actually going to ETABS, I want to just conclude this general introduction of pushover analysis by saying that all those nonlinearity which you account for nonlinear time history analysis, you also include that in your computer model for pushover analysis also. So material nonlinearity at user defined hinges, for example, frame or line elements, those should be in your computer model. If you have any link elements, for example, these special link elements available in CSI products, they can also be a part of your computer model which you are pushing. Then geometric nonlinearity. There are several options. The most commonly used option for accounting geometric nonlinearity is P delta effect. Generally, this large displacement is not used. Only P delta is enough for our civil engineering structures. And if you have a staged or sequential construction load case, a nonlinear load case, you can also have the nonlinear static procedure for this case. Obviously, nonlinear analysis doesn't always guarantee a unique solution. Sometimes you will have convergence issues. So there are several nonlinear parameters I will show you in ETABS. If you have convergence issues, you may have to modify those default nonlinear parameters so that your solution converges to a unique value. So small changes in properties or loading can cause large changes in nonlinear response, because nonlinear response is not that straightforward, predictable. Sometimes pushover analysis is also used to perform sensitivity studies. For example, the concrete strength can vary from a lower bound to an upper bound. So you may want to have the effect of that varying strength of concrete on the overall global behavior of the building, because pushover curve is showing you a global behavior, how your overall structure is going to have the force deformation behavior. So if any parameter which is having a significant effect on the global behavior, that parameter is sensitive and you should have a special attention to that parameter. And obviously nonlinear analysis will take more time, because as I have said, that if you push your building in 50 steps, which simply means that software have to perform 50 static analysis cases, and every time it have to degrade the K matrix also. So it is not using the constant K matrix as in the case of linear analysis. It is removing all those elements which are yielded from the K matrix, and it is constantly updating it with each analysis step. It is actually degrading it, because uh, the elements are being yielded and crushed, and all those nonlinear effects are there. So their effect on the K matrix will be accounted for each analysis step. So it will take far more time compared to a linear static case.